What Christians must ask themselves is if when they see the truth spilled from Jesus' mouth, do they accept it or read a theological inference into it while modifying it? If they can't hear his unadulterated voice without the noise of men, then the truth is squelched. It was squelched for me for a long time because I had a belief system handed to me that I justified with empty sophistry as I gathered and misused a few texts here and there that I proceeded to use to modify the words of Jesus to fit that belief system. I justified this because I accepted the authority of men's supposed sound interpretations that I was scared to question because of what that might mean for my pride and popularity, my salvation even, as I was hounded with the lie that to believe differently from my peers would equal my loss of favor with God and ultimate destruction, my being labeled and considered dead. I really cannot find a whole heap of difference between my experience as a Jehovah's Witness and the experience of those who dare question creeds and traditions and policies of men within Christian churches. Except perhaps that the Christian churches have a condemnation that is a billion times scarier than the Jehovah's Witnesses, and that they don't even believe Gehenna consumes God's adversaries. They believe in eternal conscious torment. The truth can stand up to any scrutiny, and that should be our quest. When challenged by logic and reason, biblical reasoning, and Jesus' own words without philosophical sophistry/imposition, do we feel threatened? Do we run everywhere we can to find justification for our belief? I think the Trinity is every bit as stable as 1914 and the Jehovah's Witness separation of Christians into two classes. It is a preconception garnered from a serious and egregious misuse of a literal few scriptures that leads to a fairy tale hypostatic union. This misinterpretation, this hypostatic union, is read back into and imposed upon Yahweh and Jesus' simple words all over Scripture, essentially butchering their pure, beautiful intent. I've noticed Trinitarians feel especially threatened when they are told a body with no Jesus in it wasn't a good enough sacrifice. Jesus himself, the person of Christ, had to die, and God, of course, defines death as sleep, a lack of breath and thoughts. You can't be singing, speaking, breathing, or awake when you're dead, according to God. Wonder why that thought, in particular, might make them get hostile enough to name-call, block people online, or boot them from message boards. This may not be that big a deal, but again, I'm exposing Christian hypocrisy in regards to what they condemn Jehovah's Witnesses for, that they too practice themselves, maybe even more shamefully in certain instances. I can only imagine what might happen in an Orthodox church if someone kept trying to assert this basic truth about Jesus perishing for 3 days. This is a simple milk of the word. God forbid we proclaim it. Truth-seeking voices are silenced with threats to their stance with God, with threats to their salvation, from people they love who seem like sheep, who have a lot of truth and love. But are there lies and hypocrisy in the mix, is the question. Just like Jehovah's Witnesses, Christians feel safe in their little community, love-bombed, so to speak, and certainly don't want to lose that. And if they start believing something integral and important that Jesus said that might contradict their cherished traditions and those of their peers, possibly even those of their own family, what would this mean for them? Even if they spoke up, had to leave their church, accepting Jesus' unadulterated claims with no philosophical and mysterious imposition again, and were able to keep their friends and family, wouldn't the judgments, though perhaps more hypocritical and they may possibly be more unspoken than the Watchtowers, be almost unbearable because, after all, your peers and your family, possibly, have been bombarded with the propaganda and deception that anyone who thinks Jesus is a made Lord, who has a God, who's a separate being, are cultists, unsaved, abominable heretics. And we know what happened to those in the past. And that kind of indoctrination, that kind of mind messing with your mind, is powerful, treacherous, unjustified, and pathetic. In my opinion, equaling something similar to the Watchtower's mind control because of how pervasive and insistent it is. And may I add, I've noticed quite a bit of arrogance in these unwarranted dogmas, just like with the Jehovah's Witnesses and theirs. They assert them so confidently when they are completely absent from Scripture logically. I think sometimes that arrogance comes about because the positions are so refutable.